Yeah, hello. My name is Laurence Malthouse. I'm the Solution Sales Director at Gamma Enterprise, looking after enterprise and public sector markets. And I'm joined here today by
Lee Peterson. I'm the VP of Product Management for Secure WAN at Cisco.
And I'm Chris Wade. I'm Gamma's Chief Marketing and Product Officer.
Very good. So look, Cisco and Gamma have been partner for many years now. Our networking heritage is pretty rich. I've been at Gamma for 15 years, and Cisco have always been a very strategic partner of Gamma. But obviously this week we launched a new secure networking service. So maybe we can start there really. How do you think that partnership, that relationship between Gamma and Cisco have evolved?
Yeah, so look, firstly, thank you for the partnership. We obviously do a lot of work together. We go to market together. We have shared customers. That's really important to us. The effort that Gamma's put into learning and being experts in Cisco technology, achieving all the certifications and all the Cisco powered services designations, all the things related to that, that's a big investment you've made in Cisco, and we're happy to help pay that back by being very close, being very strategic in terms of how we engage. We want to make sure that we have two-way dialogue as to where the market's going, where we see opportunities, and just really continue to work together and to go do great things together.
Yeah, I think we're seeing some great synergies across the teams, not just in sales, but product, pre-sales. It's a relationship which is going from strength to strength, and it's great having Cisco in our back pocket when we compete in the marketplace. So that's really fantastic. So look, we're here today to talk about networking, and I guess some of the trends. Obviously, there's a lot about SASE, software-defined networking. I think it'd just be good to hear from you actually in terms of where you think the key networking trends are, and maybe what's the outlook for the next few years, because obviously we're in such a fast-moving environment at the moment.
Yeah, I think that being here today, having spoken to yourselves, speaking to customers, there's a lot of alignment there. I think that the challenges we see in the UK are the same as we see in the US, and a lot of the same as we see globally. Skill shortage and the challenges around that being primary. Like there's not enough skilled individuals to go build, configure, operate these networks for us, and it's going to continue to be a problem. So there's both a challenge and an opportunity with that. The opportunity for me as a product manager is to build technology that's easier to use and easier for customers to adopt. The challenge for you as a partner that builds managed services is to take the burden of managing those networks off your customers, off our shared customers, and just make it the easy button. Make sure that you're there and you're able to operate in a way that just makes their lives easier.
Yeah,
and gives them much more flexibility.
Yeah, maybe you could sort of expand on that. I mean, often in the UK, we see a lot of influence coming over from the US. I think that would be a really good viewpoint to have. Maybe some of those trends that you're seeing in the US is likely to hit us at some point when it comes to secure networking.
I think one of the most exciting developments for me is we're trying to make networking exciting.
Yeah.
So we've got technical people coming out of high school, out of colleges, and one of the ways we're trying to modernize networking is focusing a lot on cloud management, focusing on APIs, focusing on more modern techniques like infrastructure as code, using things like Terraform and Ansible to actually make a network a configurable element that's managed the same way you manage software. Right? Being able to actually store network configurations in GitHub and manage them that way. So we're seeing already that makes networking much more exciting versus maybe a 18-year-old person coming out of a technical college isn't that excited about learning CLI.
Yeah.
So CLI is still going to be there. We'll still continue to support that. That's not going anywhere, but more modern techniques we can apply on that.
And you said something there which I think is quite important, which is product management looking for solutions. And you referenced Gamma as a managed service provider earlier. Those increasingly sort of code-led pieces actually help us do that because it allows an automation wrap even around those pieces, which mean we can operate them at scale. And something that Hendrik was saying earlier from Cisco as well, security becomes a machine scale problem, and networking is a natural part of that now. So the more we can automate that, the more the tools that you develop and build have that at their core, actually the better outcome we can drive for our collective customers.
There's a very interesting term that gets used, which is coffee shop networking. Right? Doesn't that sound simple? It sounds like an access point, a few VLANs. That sounds easy. Go do that 10,000 times in a consistent way with security and make sure there's no vulnerabilities to it, right? That's what the art is for us, is to be able to build the technology so that yourselves can wrap automation layers around that and offer that as a service to your customers. And they know they're getting that consistency, they're getting that reliability, they're getting all the things they need. Because We're in a world now where the network being down means that I'm losing money. I can't take point of sale transactions. People turn around and walk out of that store. Right? Forget the cashless society. The next generation don't even carry wallets. Right? I can't make an Apple Pay or an Android Pay transaction. I'm out.
I've got nothing. I've got nothing to give you.
I think also too, just expanding on some of the other trends. Then the complexity of the networks is growing. So as much as I talk about coffee shop networking, that's simplifying what's happening in one specific location, which would be the branch operating in a retail type environment. But actually, if you look at everything else outside of that individual environment, it's gotten far more complex. Right? I mentioned that point of sale. That lives in the cloud now. The productivity apps they use, the apps they use for inventory, the apps they use for scheduling employees, the phones, right? Where are they going? They're all cloud-based. No one's putting on-premise PABXs in anymore. So it's getting more complicated because the applications are moving into all these disparate locations. The users are now all over the place. You can't rely on them being in one place. And the ability to use the network to secure that using more modern techniques, use ETNA. There's a big announcements coming from Cisco around how we stitch all that together and make that part of the fabric of the network coming part of Cisco Live in June. So it's very exciting time, but it's that things aren't getting simpler, right? So the network complexity drives exposure from a security perspective. We want to make sure we're building the right things to help secure.
Well, I think we're finally moving away from that sort of world where people are treating networks as commodity. Like you said, we do a lot with the retail vertical where the use of technology in those environments is absolutely critical to customer experience. You said electronic shelf labeling, heat mapping, like using and embracing that technology to gain market share is critical. If you don't have the correct underlying foundations to support that, you're missing a trick. And it's such fine margins, and the margins are so low that you need to stay competitive.
And that goes to your automation point, isn't it? So your point of complexity is actually getting married to, as you're saying, the need for more bandwidth. So you're trying to run an SD network, that's trying to ingest multiple different cloud platforms, multiple different sensors, make sense of it all, and never fall over. Because, like you say, the moment it falls over, produce is beginning to perish in the retail environment. People can't pay. You've got a cost and a lack of revenue issue. You're right. Networking has never been more important. Actually, I don't think.
And I guess that's true in terms of its scalability and and it's not just being sort of UK centric, but that need to have networking around the world and scaling that and using that software to deliver that consistent service around the world. I guess in the UK it's slightly different because we've moved from a product such as MPLS and a lot of the common misperceptions that was moving to software-defined services is going to be cheaper, but often it's not. Often there is a cost to that, and organisations do have to find budget to buy and invest in that software-defined edge. What I guess the question is, what are some of the arguments that we can use to justify that type of potentially additional investment that's needed?
Yeah, look, I think it's the flexibility point. So you're right, it may come out somewhat cost neutral, it may not be necessarily a cost adder, but the flexibility you get in terms of having an underlay and an overlay and being able to have different options on that underlay, right? The underlay is getting more complicated as well. I need not just one connection in now, I need multiple. I need terrestrial and probably diverse paths on that. I need cellular, and we're seeing an increasing trend towards low Earth orbit. Certainly Starlink has become a big trend. We did some analysis recently, tens of thousands of the WAN devices we have deployed are running Starlink. Of those, 75% of them are only running Starlink. Right? So the definition of what the WAN even means has changed. So the having the SD-WAN components and running the overlay means that you get a lot of flexibility, you get a lot of visibility as to what's happening over that. And then the SD-WAN platform can make intelligent decisions on where do I route the traffic to ensure that the applications are running, that the quality of service is there. And this will be heightened in the AI era, right? The AI applications, the things are running at the edge, bandwidth sensitive, latency sensitive. Right? We need to make sure that the network is able to make good decisions with the complexity that's there inherently as part of it.
And to your point on pricing, to across you, but the individual component pieces of that might reducing costs just by economics. But actually, when you put them all together, people are, I think, prepared to pay for that performance because it's so business critical.
I think the other piece is that an SD-WAN is inherently an easy thing to bake things like CTNA and SASE into from a security perspective. One of the biggest credit card compromise hacks that happened in the US about 10 years ago, a major retailer, it was a HVAC system that was internet connected, it's compromised. And then east-west jumped over to another system, and were able to get customer credit card numbers, right? So those sort of things would scare people. The idea, though, if you've got an SD-WAN layer, you've got security baked into it, its ability to update and ensure that you're protected from those threats. You talked about this earlier about the identity piece, making sure that's baked in there as well. Yeah. That all has to come together. And SD-WAN is just a more modern, more forward-looking way to do that, and even more so when it's enhanced with SASE.
Yeah, I'm really interested to explore a little bit more, I guess, the world of Meraki and Catalyst. In the UK, I think we've certainly found, so especially in the types of companies that we typically work with, which are highly distributed, lots of smaller sites, that Meraki has got that sort of march, I guess, in terms of deployment. But we're seeing more and more organisations now maybe looking at the functionality of Meraki and wanting to consider Catalyst. But then there's a challenge. Well, how do I run an estate with mixed Catalyst and Meraki, and do I have two different platforms and portals to look at? How's that evolving in the Cisco sort of product portfolio?
Yeah, so a few fundamental changes at Cisco. One is we now have a single chief product officer, G2 Patel. He was put into the role about a year ago, and he's restructured the company to make sure that there is no more religion about this versus that. So there were mutually exclusive decisions made around, if I go down a Meraki track, I can't use Catalyst. If I go down a Catalyst track, I can't use Meraki. So I mentioned that my role is to run enterprise routing, and that's all of the Meraki products and the Catalyst products that are in that portfolio. Yeah. And building a roadmap so there is interoperability, so there is more of a conversation about how do you want to deploy it? Do you want on-prem? Do you want cloud? Do you want a hybrid? Versus a green versus blue religious battle between Meraki and Cisco.
I think there's a build is important in that as well. That's a technology platform play, hardware and software. Yeah. But actually the commercial overlay on that is just as important. One of the things you referenced our partnership with Cisco, we're really excited about it actually is the evolution of how those things come together. Yep. It's not just a red or blue, green or blue conversation, but actually it's about outcome. Yes. And it's about delivering value to customers and solving their problems. Mm. And there's a sort of higher level than just networking that we work with Cisco on about WebEx and collaboration, customer experience, and networking, and they all hang together. And we talk a lot about delivering that's future-proof, reliable, scalable, secure communications infrastructure. One of the reasons we work with you guys is Cisco have all the pieces to do that. Yeah. And what we see, like you say with G2's leadership, is actually you understand that power too. Yep. And they have all of those components working together. And that gives us a lot of confidence from a delivery of systems and managed service perspective.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, the whole partnership with your pedigree in routing, moving into security with Gamma owning our own core network and having that end-to-end visibility of those applications and that responsibility to supporting our customers, there's a really strong bond, and it's great. I definitely want to talk about SASE. Everyone is talking a lot about SASE at the moment. Talk about the true integration of networking and security. What does that actually mean in Cisco terminology?
Yeah, so we have our own, we're a standalone, referred to as SSE. So Secure Access is our platform that we are offering a single vendor SASE solution around. We recognize that we are very committed to open standards. We're not trying to create proprietary lock-in with our SSE. We will orchestrate things at the network layer to make that work in a more seamless way. We want the Cisco end-to-end Cisco solution to have some advantages, but we're utterly committed to ensuring we continue to work with other third-party vendors and our competitors, frankly, that have solutions for cloud security as well. So customers don't have to think that they've got to buy the whole thing from us. It's not a proprietary lock-in model. It's obviously going to be about us wanting to make the things that we do together better, but not to the exclusion of the things that already exist in the industry.
Yeah, which I guess is almost opposite to some of your main competitors who are pushing that single vendor SASE play very hard. And they say that's a key differentiator. I guess where you're coming from here, that might not be possible. And it's how do you leverage what you've got? How do you use the right APIs to make sure that you can integrate your existing security products with newer components of SASE, for example? Maybe the end game will be single vendor, but this is taking customers on that journey.
I think there's also a real power for us in the idea that the cloud security and the SD-WAN have to work together. And what I mean by that is that it's not efficient to pipe every piece of traffic from a remote location to a cloud for inspection to just hairpin it straight back down to that location. Yeah. So you do need intelligence at the end. At the edge, you still need IPS, IDS, and all the standard security technologies there, but also the ability to make intelligent decisions on how do I inspect some of those things locally and not hairpin them up to the cloud and back down. And how do I break out things locally that don't need to be inspected? I probably don't need to inspect my Office 365 traffic. I don't need to inspect if one of my local users is looking at YouTube, right? It's inefficient to go pipe that to a cloud. It's essentially at that point latency as a service, right? So making sure that you get the combination of the two to get the best outcome.
Yeah. So something you said actually, which I think is worth, if you're going down the route of working with a vendor who's trying to drive them to lock in, but I think as a vendor you've got the wrong approach. Actually, what I do like the way Chintu describes it is he's driving Cisco, I think, correct me if I get this wrong, to deliver exponential value through combination of products, so that we as a partner can articulate that value to an end customer and say, look, you're absolutely right, you can pick and choose however you want to put these together, but there is demonstrable, tangible value of taking these in combination from a single provider. And that for me is much more valuable, because what you're saying is choose two from the same family because they're better together and we use good together as well, tackle that as well. And it compounding up as you add more and more things, I think is an incredibly powerful story, because let's face it, no one has this neat contractual situation where they can swap everything out at the moment, nor has anyone got any appetite for the level of technical disruption that can bring in. So the flexibility that confers, but driving the value through the combination of products, I think is a real powerful point.
It really is. And I guess if you look at Gamma's position in the marketplace, that's how we differentiate. We've always had great partnerships with vendors, and it's how we plugged and pinned those vendors or last mile providers into our network, which gives us that sort of flexibility, almost like a systems integrator. Yes, we own the core network, but we have best of breed partners that we can integrate into that end-to-end service wrap and give our customers that, well, I was talking before, that end-to-end sort of observability over multiple different products and multiple different partners, but knowing that ultimately Gamma are responsible for the performance of the network, which is really great.
If you give our customers credit, they don't want lock-in, right? At any level. So they're smart enough to realize that if the vendor and the partner choice don't give them that flexibility, then maybe not the right vendor or the right partner.
Oh yeah, I mean, technical and commercial flexibility is critical in any great customer relationship, and our customers' businesses are changing so quickly. Having that lock-in and forcing them to go in RFP at the end of 3 or 5 years when the network's no longer supporting their business initiatives just doesn't help anyone. So that's a really good point. I think I just want to maybe sort of bring this to a conclusion. Obviously, being VP at Cisco for product management, maybe an insight into the next sort of 5 years and where you see again some of the direction of Cisco and where it's going. I know it's changed massively even over the last 24 months from a secure networking point of view. But what's your wish for the future direction?
I think that the massive investments we're making in AI to drive AI ops, to drive efficiency there are probably the thing I'm the most excited about. I'll skip through the sort of intermediate steps and I'll jump to the future. The future is agentic AI. The future is 30 years of CCIE and CCNA knowledge, looking and observing your network and all the security threats and making decisions at machine scale. Right? That's powerful. And we have all the tools we need to make that happen. We have the largest data lake in the industry. We have more devices in the field than anyone in the industry. We know more about what's going on with all the devices and what the patterns of different things that happen. So our ability to analyze that data and use that to train these agentic AI engines to be able to make great decisions for how we deploy and manage networks is powerful. And again, that changes the skill set. That means that I'm not as focused on, do I need to know CLI? Do I need to know all these really in the weeds type technologies? I'm now more focused on in plain language, what's the intent of what I'm trying to do? How do I describe that? And this idea of prompt engineering, right? That's going to be a more important skill for the next generation of people that are operating these networks than maybe being in the weeds on all the specific syntax of a protocol.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to think of just the skill sets and who will be employing to do these type of roles. As you said, it's just a totally different profile of person now that's going to be attracted to this type of industry. I think it'll be exciting to see. I told
my son about 10 years ago, I said, we didn't have the internet. No. He goes, well, what do you connect your iPad to?
Yeah, exactly that.
And so I think 10 years from now, that's all, maybe our kids, that's going to be what do you mean you didn't have an AI assistant to do this for you?
Yeah.
So it just starts to become the norm, and what people grow up with just becomes normalized. It's science fiction to us. It's super exciting. I do think we're at the precipice of the beginning of a great revolution here, and I think its ability to just absolutely revolutionize the way we take networking to market and the way we work with our customers is immense.
Yeah, I mean, we've just seen that from our graduate programs that we're running. It's all of a sudden sort of tech becoming really cool, and some of those traditional vocations don't have the pull, and it's great to see that mix of people coming into our industry. I think maybe just Chris, just for you, just to finish on as well, in terms of the Gamma Cisco relationship, and I asked a similar question that I did to Lee in terms of the next sort of 3 to 5 years. What are you hoping for?
I mean, we're incredibly privileged, I think, to work at Cisco and have the relationship we have, because we benefit from all that investment, and we can able to wrap that and package it and deliver it to our customers. So I see the future of networking, for example, in that context of network administration is going to change dramatically, because the agents will tell you there's going to be a problem. They will tell you what the best way to configure the network is, how to set it up, this device, this route, this path is a problem. So that will change that, and it will deliver those incredible outcomes that we're all trying to deliver to our customers. And I think as you overlay it with some of the more collaboration-oriented things, and we start to bring those different pieces together, you start to understand how you're connecting, like literally a camera that you're looking at to have a conversation with a colleague or customer. That is helping with individual well-being, because people are still going to be working wherever they are. It's going to be making sure you're delivering the highest quality connection between people. And as we're inclusive and remote, that's going to be ever more important as we think about that. And it's going to be defending against who knows what. And the real scary thing, I think, with AI is no one really knows where it's going to go. But actually, I'd much rather work with someone, like you say, who's got that big data lake, huge agentic AI capability wrapped around it, because then we can have a sensible partnership conversation about, we see these problems in the market, how are you answering them? I see that sort of unlocking vast potential for both of us, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly that. Maybe this time next year we'll be sat here talking about self-healing networks and actually being a reality.
I'm going to send AI Lee to attend next year.
Exactly.
Robot proxy.
Exactly.
Look, chaps, thanks so much for attending. I think that's been really insightful. We really value your the partnership, and I'm sure that's going to go from strength to strength. So thanks so much.